Could we take our seats before I have to compel the Orono Police Department to help counselors to their seats? That's in the charter. That's in the charter. Thanks, Mitch. Action. Good. It's almost time to start saying afternoon, but I'm going to stay with evening for a little bit until perhaps the spring is officially here. But good evening and welcome to the Monday, February 9th meeting of the Orono Town Council. Roll call shows that we have Councilor Larway. We expect Councilor Hardison. I expect Councilor Marks as well. I'm Councilor Demerit, Councilor Powers, Councilor Baker, and Councilor Quinn in attendance this evening. First part, item 2 on our agenda is agenda review, where we go through items that have been, we list things that have been listed to committees. If anyone has any updates to these or changes, they can let us know. And it's an opportunity for us to review anything on the agenda, ask questions and potentially add things to the agenda if we all agree. Are there any agenda review questions or items for anyone this evening? Okay. Next up on our agenda then is, well, okay, sorry. Next up on our agenda, item 3 is approval of minutes for the January 26th, 2026 meeting and the February 2nd, 2026 budget workshop. Anyone have any, can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions or corrections? Okay, all those in favor? That's unanimous, 5-0, those voting. Public comment, this is an opportunity for anyone here with us in the audience or anyone in our global worldwide audience online to join us and speak with the Orono Town Council about anything that's not on our agenda. Do we have anyone in the audience who would like to join us for public comment? Anybody online with their hand up? Okay, we'll move on from public comment and we'll move right into item 5, presentations and discussion items, a resolution recognizing the University of Maine soccer team. I have it here. So we like, and it looks like we have some soccer players here and definitely a soccer coach. So the resolution, we'll read it and then we'll act on it. Then we'll take a picture and but the resolution by the Orono Town Council honoring the 2025 University of Maine women's soccer team. Whereas the University of Maine Black Bear women's soccer team demonstrated extraordinary talent, relentless dedication, and cohesive teamwork throughout the 2025 season. And whereas the team achieved a historic victory by clinching the America East Conference Championship title on November 9th, 2025. And whereas this is the 3rd consecutive year the team has achieved this feat. And whereas the University of Maine has been an integral part of the town of Orono since its founding in 1865, it's the only NCAA Division I athletic program in the state of Maine. Its students are celebrated members of the Orono community. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Orono Town Council that the town of Orono officially recognizes and congratulates the 2025 University of Maine Black Bear women's soccer team. So could I have a motion?
So moved.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. Any other discussion other than what I just shared? John, I saw you at a lot of soccer games this year, right? So I think every time I was at one, you were at one.
Yeah, I don't think it's discussion, but just that it's been, it's a really fun to have such exciting and competitive programs like right in our backyard.
Yep.
And I think it's a big part of living here to be able to go out and do that. So I'm glad we're able to recognize these successes.
Anyone else?
As I take my son to the games, and man, what great example of fast and athletic and fierce competition. So it's a good venue for him to learn what it means to be a soccer player. Thank you.
I'm trying to stall until our women members of our council get here to join us in voting on this, but I don't think I can go long enough. But I do say your new facility is amazing. You play excellent soccer. It's a lot of fun to watch. And I think you have, and they may be the softball team, but I think you have some of the rowdiest fans I see at UMaine events. They're a little rough on a player. I can't remember what, maybe it was a Vermont player or something like that. But it was in good fun for the most part. So I thought so. Anyway, if that's it, we'll go all in favor. Excellent. That's unanimous, 5-0. And if we could, love to get a picture and congratulations. Thanks. Yeah, right here would be great. And 2 weeks from now, we'll have the Seattle Seahawks, I think. No,
perfect.
no, if anyone, no one charge it.
They were going to trade for him.
Yeah, no. Item B is a presentation on Safer. I'll turn that to under presentation discussion items, and I'll turn that to the town manager to introduce
Yeah,
that.
so, Chief Higgins and Deputy Chief Hardison are here as well to back it up. But and again, I want to make sure some of this, because Counselor Marks and I have had some great conversations. The Finance Committee received a presentation, and she had asked and about some things to be pointed out. But Mitch, can you share it for online so people maybe could see? Can you do that? Maybe. Well, I would hope that people could open the attachment, or at least the council could open the attachment that's in the packet. We'll start with the one that is labeled overtime percent spreadsheet. And looking at that, I think the
Clint, can you
key-
give a little background on what Safer is and why we're
Oh.
talking about it?
Sure. Yes. So the Safer is a grant. It's been 4 years with the town. It allowed the town to staff up to a 6th member in the 4-shift crew and to drop down to a 42-hour shift schedule, which was a big change at the same time. So again, we run 4 shifts, 6 firefighters, 24/7, 365. And with this, the Safer Grant funded 3 full-time positions of the 4 through the phase-in. And the final year is this year. It ends this month. And so starting March 1st, the budget this year carried the last third for the fiscal year to pay for the remaining months. There was a lot of discussion last year about how that was done. And we've looked at the data to see what's occurring. So the request last year was that this presentation we made before we switched over and kicked into the budget season into the non-grant funded portion of the agreement. So a lot of this focuses on how much overtime and how we pay for it and does it offset it. With the 6 firefighters, I guess in my terms, we run a crew we run two ambulances. So if 2 ambulance calls come in at the same time, they go to them both. That takes 2 firefighters each, leaves 2 behind to run a truck. That is what I would call a good minimum staffing guideline. It is recommended to have 4 on a fire truck. I think a lot of times on a very active fire scene, you want to see more than that. Command plus 2 in, 2 out is an appropriate standard. And again, that does change from time to time when federal standards get reviewed. So when you look at this, the questions that have been coming up with the Safer Grant, it funded this, it's coming up, and we want to know that how is it performing? What is its benefit to the citizens? Is it costing the town money? And so the data that was shared when you adopted it was hard to recreate for me, having been here only 18 months, your chief as well. But we went through and we put together the data that's up on the screen there for people at home and that you have in your packets to kind of create some sort of measurable uniform data that we can look at year to year. What becomes tricky is that each year is different. You know, the number of staff that's available, the number of people that are responding, the number of people that are out on short-term, long-term leaves, vacation weeks, et cetera, can all play a factor in this. But what we're trying to do is build a set of data that helps measure its cost and success. So for 2025, they measure this on the calendar year because that tracks to the overtime that we report on the employees for year end on their tax returns. So the top section of that form you're looking in there is month by month. And it on the far left, you'll see it says total shifts, hours, vacancies filled. That's the number of hours. The next column down is number of hours needing to be filled if at 6. So that is setting the numbers that there is double missed shifts no matter what. So there's a scenario where even if we had 6 full-time firefighters, what is the most we'd have to fill? Because sometimes we have vacancies that are planned, for example, training. So those would be there anyway. And when you bring it across to the far right, you'll see that in fiscal calendar year 2025, 615 hours were inevitable. You would have had them. And we'll come back to that in a second. And then the difference is the hours that were not filled if we were at 6. That's the 3,829. And that gets us to a ratio of 85% for the year. The next chart is where it can become confusing again. And I'm going to look to the chief and the deputy chief, but this is where we take the extra hours and we compare it to what we projected it would be. So the projected number is what the staff coming into the year felt we would be likely to hit. It's based upon just historical data, and they try to do their best estimates of what they think it should happen. It changes year to year. Then the third column below the yellow line, and as you see it's in yellow, they don't take into account sick time for short notice, sick time or short notice vacations. That gets you to the next column down where it looks at the total hours missed for the entire year being 5,962. That's where your leave time, sick time comes in and all the vacation hours that were matched above. If you notice, the vacancies at 4359.5 in the first 2 sections matches the second number in that third box. So, and again, that puts you at the total overtime hours for 2025 at 5,962 hours. Now we have to figure out a way to show you the value of that. These are all based on actual numbers. Those are the actual hours missed. The 615 is the actual of hours that we would have had to have called another person back in. No one made any policy decisions. They are just reporting actual numbers. When you get to that, that takes us into that if you use $57.51, that's where staff has to make some summaries. Everybody makes different wages. It's an average of the total cost and benefits of a firefighter on average. No overtime. With overtime. Average overtime cost per hour. Thank you for clarifying. So then when you take that number and you take the 5,962, it means that we had $342,874 of costs. That will not match your financials because the actual overtime is based upon the real cost of the actual person, but it's very close. Check that today. So the numbers are fairly accurate in that regard. But again, a higher cost employee being out more than a lower cost employee, those numbers would change. The next number, the unavoidable, is the 615 hours. So they knock that out. So what it's saying is if we were at 6 full-time firefighters, of the $342,000 of overtime we had, $307,000 would have been saved if we were at the full 6, and they could have covered them all perfectly throughout the whole year. So this led us into a couple pieces of missing information that the finance committee thought was relevant. I started to put this together, actually met again today with staff on it some more, and it became trickier just because staff had to make assumptions. So the one number that we would like to share that we know we can give you is that we took the average cost of a firefighter pay and benefits per year, and a single firefighter is $87,991 all in. So 4 of them, as funded in the SAFER grant, if it's all funded by taxes, is $351,966.12. So what we were hoping to find, and this is where I probably need some guidance from the council, and we can catch Councilor Marks up on this because I think she'll have some great insights, is in order to give a comparison. So this is the quote unquote perfect scenario. If we were at full staff and everything worked perfectly compared to what actually occurred for the whole year. We had 615 hours. We know for a fact we had to call in double staff, even if we were at 6. We know for a fact we had 5,962 hours of overtime paid. What does staff think is reasonable? What's practicable? So what really got into the trouble with this is I started looking at prior year, and I'm only going to talk about last year. So in 2024, we had 7,310 vacancies, 8,008 hours of overtime. So over a 2,000-hour difference in 1 year. 2,000 hours is a full-time position. That's a significant difference in 1 year. The ones that would have had to been filled, even if we were at 6, would have been 1,812. It's a 1,200-hour difference. So what the conversation we had, and I've been around and around these numbers since the finance committee meeting and trying to figure out what can I tell you for a fact. And I go back to what you have in your packet. Aside from the fact that we know 4 firefighters cost $351,000. We know that in fiscal year 25, 615 hours would have been covered no matter what. Those 615 hours are worth $35,000. So no matter what, we had $35,000 of costs. We also know on the other extreme that if we had had 6 all year long, and it would have been the perfect scenario, there was 307,000 of overtime hours we could have avoided, which takes us to the full number. We also know how many overtime hours we had and what it cost us, $342,000. So the best case scenario is 35, and the worst case scenario is 342. I did a quick comparison though, and then in 2004, 342,000 becomes 460. The savings jumps all the way up that we could have avoided was 364,000, but we actually avoided 104,000. So again, numbers that are changing by 300% in regards to the projected budgeted cost, 20% into the savings, and again, $120,000 increase in 1 year on actual overtime. I can't tell you what that number is going to be. You've been at 42 hours for 3 years. What are the parameters you want to put on us on the amount of overtime that we should or shouldn't be experiencing as a department? How do you want us to count the cost of overtime against the real fact that people go out on leaves, that sick time coincide with vacation? I mean, I know that the average number of vacations is just under 4 weeks per person per shift. With 6 people per shift, that means there's 24 weeks, roughly a year. So half the year they're going to be a vacation. They will never have to double up for vacations. That said, though, when you have one long-term absence, whether it's a leave, it's training, medically related, that can be 800, 900 hours for one person in a single year. If we have a senior set of firefighters, they're not going to need to go to training for the fire academy. So we'll have less training hours. If they're all young and we're having to send many people to the academy, we're going to have more. Or if we're going to send more people to paramedic school, it becomes this moving target of what's the maximum exposure, what's the minimum. So I go back to, in 2005, the maximum exposure was 342 and the minimum is 35. How you want to relate that on your own, it's anywhere in between that, how you feel you want to judge that. When I add to it that it cost us $351,000 to pay for 4 firefighters, you could say that the maximum savings, 342, is completely mitigated by the 351. But if we start changing the number of firefighters from 6 to 5 or 6 to 7, it will change the amount of overtime each way you do it. So the policy that's in front of me is that we run with 6. And you made the decision we're going to staff every shift at 6 firefighters. In calendar year 2025, that had the potential savings of 307, actual cost because we weren't fully staffed of 342. And I know that's a longer presentation than probably some expected, but again, the data's there. There's other sheets we can talk about, but everything keeps coming back to this one. And why I paused with the staff is I felt like I was making policy decisions by how I shared the data with you that could skew this one way or the other. What's in front of you does not put any opinion into it. It says, this is what happened. And if you want to talk about the opinions I have, it's more about what happens to the service levels if we change our staffing. But from a cost, and Sarah, hopefully you caught that last piece. I think the costs are in the spreadsheets you have. It's just, we never have an understanding of what would be the trend over a long period of time yet, because I only have 2-3 years worth of data. And I don't want to trend 2-3 years of data because there's so much variance. I know in the 2 years I've been here, why it's changed. You know, we've had a long-term absence this year. We had a lot of long-term medical leaves the prior year. You know, and we've got a lot of people at school doing trainings. That's what's really driving those numbers. Will it get better? Will it get worse? I guess that's subjective. What's better or what's worse? It could be more expensive, but we might have better coverage. Messy. I'm sorry.
All right.
Yep.
Yeah, Council Marks.
Yeah,
Okay,
thanks.
I'm sorry. Okay.
Thanks, Clint. And I'm sorry that I missed the beginning. Are any of these numbers you just stated anywhere on any spreadsheet? I see the one that I saw at Finance Committee before, but I don't see any additions to it.
The only one that's missing is the 351,966. I held off on that one because it wasn't a complete answer to the Finance Committee, and I thought a discussion would be better to understand why, because I don't know, and I can give you the one with the 351,9, but it was just one number.
And that's the cost of funding the 4 positions?
That's the 4. Yeah, that's the
Right.
And again, it's because you can't pick which 4 it is. So I truly
Yeah.
took it's a 5th-year firefighter
Got
with
it.
some EMT certifications.
But the numbers you were giving of 342 down to 35, those are not anywhere on any spreadsheet we've been given. We were just
Nope,
stated.
they're on that one.
Where? Not on the version I have.
Oh, don't tell me they changed from the one to
Right.
the other. No, 330, 342 and 35, 368 should be right on that. Let me open the other one to make sure.
Oh, you're talking about the overtime. I thought, okay, great. I
Yep.
thought you were on the sick leave. So I really agree that for the most part, this shows what we need about this year's data.
Yep.
And a big thank you to the fire department staff for all their work on that. As I said in the Finance Committee, the one part here that is not actual data is assumptions about how much of the sick leave would be covered or not covered when staffed at 6. The other numbers above, you can see in the chart that says vacation training summary, there's actual data there about what percent were covered, which was about 85%, leaving only about 15% that weren't able to be covered by that extra position. So I think it is a very safe assumption that at a minimum, 15% of the sick leave hours would not be able to be covered either. If anything, it would probably be slightly higher because as the number of hours goes up, the number of potential points of overlap goes up. So the only addition I would really like to see at a minimum is acknowledging that it's not 1,600 hours of sick leave that will be filled. It's probably 85% of that. If you do the math on that, you end up with 240 hours if 15% were not covered. And 240 hours at the $57 rate is only about $14,000. So it doesn't change the numbers significantly, but it at least builds in the reality that not all those sick leave hours are going to be able to be covered. So in my opinion, a 293-ish number is pretty accurate for the data that we have. It's hard to say where those sick leave hours would have come in if it was counted how many were covered. But I think, that range is reasonable. So if we're looking at 350 minus which is the cost of the 4 positions, minus 290-ish, we're looking at approximately $60,000 as our guess of what it did this year. And I really hear you that that doesn't necessarily mean what we'll do under any other set of circumstances. It just tells us pretty much what it did this year. And I think this is really valuable information for council to be able to take a look and say, these 4 positions, if we choose to fund them, are not costing us $350,000. They are probably costing us something much, whatever 350 minus 90 is, about 60,000 approximately. So, that's a huge difference. And I think what you bring up is just, we've heard the whole way through, it's not just about money. It's also about quality of life for our firefighters and retention of firefighters and other issues. So, in my mind, this is exactly what we asked for as council, is to get a perspective on the level of cost that this was going to be, not necessarily an exact figure, but there's an order of magnitude difference between 65,000 versus 350,000. And I think, that's really important for us to have in front of us. So that's all I've got.
Matt?
I'm not as quite as familiar with these numbers, and I see that it's $57.51 average overtime. What's when there isn't an overtime hour happening? About what is the cost again? Can you remind me per hour?
What?
Like a normal firefighter that's not on overtime, what would that be per hour?
I can tell you that in 2 seconds. It's the 87,991.
I guess what I'm asking is how much more is overtime? Okay, that's what I was asking. That's all I needed.
Okay. Yep. Sorry. Could have given you the dollar. And we can add, if it's consensus, what Sarah shared is making some opinions that I'm okay with. I just felt uncomfortable saying it because right now, and again, I think you may have missed this, the difference between 2024 and 2025 is drastic. And it made me feel uncomfortable of what we think is trending. I'm like, I don't know yet. Those numbers are very
I just think it's an opinion not to state that those sick leave hours will assuredly not all be covered by a 6th person. That's also an opinion.
correct.
And I think a more reasonable opinion is that approximately the same percentage would be covered as was covered for the vacation and training summary hours. In reality, it's a generous figure that I gave. So I don't think it's tilting data. I think what's currently here is actually tilting data. So.
Anyone else? Do we have, in our EMS, are we an ambulance service, or I know are we technically an ambulance service in terms of being able to bill for transport and things like that?
Yes, we bill for transport. We're licensed to the full paramedic level, correct? Yep. Permitted, sorry, to the paramedic.
So
level.
we can, are we also able to bill now for non-transport services as an ambulance service, or are we still considered a non-transport emergency service for that?
So non-transport billing is an ordinance requirement of the council. You would have to adopt an ordinance. It's a fee.
But we'd be able to bill
Yep.
the person and through the person their insurance?
Yep. But we do not have that ability yet because we don't have an ordinance authorizing that.
Have you generated an idea of how much revenue that could?
It's what we're stumbling on to for the fiscal year 27 budget and trying to figure out what we could project and what we would recommend. And it's probably going to be a proposal in the budget to see if you would want to adopt a different fee schedule and amend our ordinances.
There's a bill in the legislature that it's LD 1530. I don't know how close you're following it, but it would coming out of committee with a couple different reports, and one of them would reimburse non-transport emergency medical service providers for 160% if you're in network for Medicare reimbursement
Oh.
rates. It would require that. You require that coverage as a health insurance coverage. So it's something to be looking at. It's too early to tell what'll happen when it before the end of the session, but it's an interesting. Chief Higgins.
Tom Higgins, Fire Chief. So I just want to reiterate that we are working on that, pulling that data together. I've been working on, we got delayed it last week, but trying to get everything together. There are ordinances around like that. I worked on one once before where people were really kind of abusive of the system. Some of them you'd feel bad for. And in the end, we at least wanted to have something put together so that you can assess a value to what you were doing, so that when hospice comes in or these different people come in to work with them, when you start telling them that they already owe you $7,000 and this is going to continue by this much, then it does head some of it off, and it does generate some revenue. So
It strikes me to require a lot of judgment and care in terms of how you'd assess how to manage a call and, yeah. Yep. Okay. Anything else in terms of the data that you shared with us, Clint, the call data, is that, it's not all year to year, right? The quick fact sheet, it says, you got 2025, are all four of these years as of 12/31 for the calendar year, or are they for the fiscal year?
All of our calendar year,
Okay,
it's the same, for all of 2022, all of calendar year 23, all of calendar year 23.
so we spent less in 2025 than we did in 2024? It's 3.2 million, 3.265 million in 2025 versus 3.284.
Yes,
Okay,
have to verify why, but that is correct.
no, it's a unexpected change, but, okay, anything else on this item?
So just to clarify the discussion, I will add that to that sheet, if that's the consensus of council. I'm comfortable with that if we have it and we've had this discussion now, and just present it back to you at the next meeting as a,
Add what?
the analysis that if 85% of the 1,600 sick time hours were actually needed to be a callback rather than 600. So it would increase the amount of mandatory hours that we would have to do for a double fill.
So how it works, right, is it just, and I'm sorry if I missed it before, but is how it works, we can run with 5, we schedule 6, but we can run with 5 without having to call somebody else in. And
Correct.
that's kind of the difference. So if you've got 6 scheduled and someone calls out sick, you don't have to force somebody else into an overtime situation, right? So,
And the trick, the ones that are tough is somebody's on vacation and then you have a training that comes up or a sick time that comes up on that same scheduled day, which is, I tried to run some, I mean, it's 40, the likelihood of that is around 42%, because that's the number of weeks a year a shift can have vacation on average.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
I mean, that's why I think that running with a 15% figure is very conservative and fair, because I know the numbers you ran come in that it could be as high as 40% where that person still had to be called for sick time. But I think just the 15 is the bare basics that ought to be there to make the figures not biased. And I have a different question beyond the spreadsheet whenever.
sure, go ahead.
I wanted to ask about the spreadsheet regarding the reasons for departure of personnel. When I first looked at this in Finance Committee, I don't think I really had looked at the data, how far back this data goes. So it goes back to 2022. And I guess I'm wondering if fire department staff could answer, or if they know. I'm hoping that these folks who left for less overtime happened in the early years before these safer positions came in. But maybe that's not accurate and people are still leaving at the same rate. And then if so, I wonder why, because supposedly the point of these safer positions is to reduce the amount of callback on overtime. So.
So I think that some of these numbers, and some of these have to be based on what people are telling you why they left. Certainly some of them left, and people leave all the time for different reasons, even though we have the same schedule everybody had. Years ago with the 56-hour schedule, it was the least preferred. We were here in Orono like the last department to go down to the 42-hour work week. So there's a lot of variables on why they do leave. I mean, people are so much more, I don't want to say it portable today. Used to be when I was a young person, I started and could get a fire department job. I stayed, people were loyal to the department they were with. Today, I swear they'll jump the fence for a nickel. And so it makes a big difference in how we're doing this, the recruiting and the opportunities people would want to hire, and there'd be 25, 30 maybe more. I don't know, Brian probably would have a better idea than me on historically on how many people would apply and come and test to come to work here. And now we're trying to grab one or two out of a hiring process and then have to start all over again on it. So it becomes a little bit difficult that way, but I think we're heading in the right direction. The Safer Grant was a good thing. It helped with that transition when they were coming down from the 56-hour work week. So I think that people that made the choices back then made the right choices.
So you are anecdotally seeing less folks leave, saying they're leaving for less overtime, or you're still seeing the exact same amount of reporting of that?
There's actually a lot of departments, other departments are seeing more like what we're seeing for overtime now. But there's no one solid thing you can say. I mean, I think that a lot of people just plain, if you just look at it typical of life today, people don't want to work overtime. You know, they don't. I think of my own son. I work my 40 hours and I don't want to do something else, Dad. Saturday's my day off. And so it's just it depends on the person but it's nice seeing something like this compiled together so you have some ideas and of what and why people left. Someone else might, there's no names on here, but Brian or people that have been with the department a long time could look at this and say, oh yeah, I know that was that person that left. So.
Okay, I hope that we'll see less of that. I think that is the point, right, of these positions was primarily really to increase quality of life for staff, that they're not having to be called in when they don't want to be, and I don't think they should have to be.
Oh, the
I think
life,
people should be able to, you know, have their quality of life. So I hope that these data will start to show less people reporting that there's still too much overtime in their opinion.
Yeah.
Thanks.
certainly people talk about the life-work balance is a big thing that, I don't know, has any of us ever heard that 10 years, 20 years ago? Anything else?
It's progress, right?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Like that, having the 6 people on a shift and being able to drop down one, still have some people is a good thing for the community.
Okay.
Just for
Partisan?
historical things prior to Chief Higgins, prior to Clint, just from basic knowledge as being extended fire family, those overtime / better pay, a lot of those people were working 48 hours on with 24 hours off for an extended period of time. And that was primarily like the 2024, 2025. But that overtime balance has improved so that we don't have quite so many who are working the 48 hours on.
Why was that happening when the safer positions were already there? Because we just couldn't fill positions and we're running short-staffed? Because technically the safer positions have been there since 2023, correct?
We had been short-staffed when those were happening.
Thanks.
I actually wish we still had our volunteer and call people. That was an answer that's never been filled when we lost all those positions. They just they drifted away over time. And the trending of organizations and the cost of training and competing with the grass that's growing in the front lawn or the dirty windows or getting your kids sporting events and things like that. So they just tailed away, but I still wish it was here.
You call me, I'll show up, you know, especially if I get to drive the truck, but yeah, thank you. Yeah, yeah, I am not getting a scanner, so, all right. That concludes the presentation items. Tonight's agenda, we'll move next to public hearings. And I will open public hearing A to consider amendments to the town of Orono's personnel policy handbook and call on the town manager to begin the public hearing.
I want to thank the council for extending with the red line issues with conversion from Microsoft, Google to Microsoft, but we did get it the PDF this time. So you had a Word version with the edits in there. Following my tradition, I'm not going to go page by page or line by line as part of the presentation. We did give the key highlights in earlier memos. There are some adjustments. Earned paid leave was adjusted with the recommendation of our advisor or HR advisor. I recognized the need for an AI policy that was crafted and put together. And then we did do some corrective language around how people are requesting time off. What is in the number of adjustments you can make for qualifying events to define what a qualifying event is to change your benefits. I think I'm trying, there was one other and everything was, I'm so focused on the AI because that was such a big part of what I was writing in it. It was, oh, right there. Oh, yes. And the minimum pay for reporting to work. If you're reported not needed, there was to be a minimum of 2 hours. We wanted to clarify that. And then the other one was the amount of vacation time. There was kind of an unwritten rule that if you were taking more than 1 week, you needed to get some time off. And so with people doing like, 11 days or a 2-week vacation, or they were going to miss all of 1 week and part of the next, as long as it's staffing covered, but it does require a town manager sign off just to make sure the department heads reviewed their staffing needs and there's no other major demands being put on. But that was something we wanted to do. It was kind of the unwritten rule, but I kind of like one of those things. If it's kind of the unwritten rule, let's just put it in writing and everybody knows it. So that's it. I'll add, if you have questions, want to refer to a page number, I'll do my best to answer them.
Okay. Those are, I guess we'll ask for, as we do with public hearings, we'll ask for clarifying questions now, and then we'll open it up to the public. I guess just questions in general, but this is not approval, right? This is a public hearing, so. Anybody have a clarifying question for the town manager? Is there anyone either here or online who would like to testify as part of our public hearing? Seeing none? Any?
It was asked inadvertently, and I don't, Sarah, it might have been at kneecap, if these apply to the council. And I guess for me to share that, I don't know if you want to, yes, if you're adhering to a part of this, you are in that intent an employee, in the sense that, and again, I was looking at the travel policy, got some adjustments to get to what we were actually doing. But if you were to travel on a town sponsored travel, you would have to adhere to that policy. AI use, if you're doing town business, and we would want you to adhere to our AI policies. That would mean you wouldn't bring in an AI drafted document that you hadn't proofread. I guess is the easiest example. You're supposed to proofread if you use AI. But yeah, so it does apply, but it's not across the board. And I've never been asked that before, so I don't know how you would want to incorporate that for sign-offs or not, if you want to see it annually like staff do to acknowledge you viewed it. You do vote it in every year, so I'm kind of assuming you've seen it when you voted in, but that's an on-you question.
Okay, Council Marks?
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Clint, because that's really where my questions were. As we're working on the council policy and procedures manual, there are some sections of this personnel policy manual that apply to us. And Clint has highlighted the two most obvious ones, the travel policy and the AI policy. So I guess reading them from a perspective of thinking about the council and the council policy and procedures manual, there were just a couple of things that jumped out at me, and I wonder if there are easy fixes in here to make it more applicable when it applies to counselors, or how we would handle that. On the travel policy, that begins on page, is it 44, Clint? I think my only concern on this was there's a fair amount of reference, I think, to getting things approved by your department supervisor. And I wonder if we just change it here or we put it in the council policy and procedure manual, but somewhere we need to say in the case of a counselor, who is that? Is that the council chair? I don't know. So, or is that just, it goes straight to the town manager? So I'm fine if it's something you want to clarify here, or if you want to bring back and say, no, in the council policy and procedures manual, we should cite this policy with a notation that anywhere it says department supervisor, this is who it means for a counselor. But I think we need to clarify it in one place or the other. And then on the AI summary, or not summary, rules, I was thinking to Councillor Demerit's request some weeks back now about using AI to summarize meeting minute
Transcript.
right, transcripts, so that that's searchable more easily by the public for any specific word. And I do see a lot of value in that for ease of the public being able to find information. In looking at this, my concern was on the acceptable uses. I believe that's on page 29. It says acceptable use for public-facing digital services. AI may be used for public-facing digital services, which I guess this would be, since it would be facing out to the public, where transparency and review are in place. So what does review mean in that case? We couldn't possibly review every word of a transcript. And likewise, then it on the bottom, failure to review or verify the content is considered improper use of AI. And so it says content published by the town of Orono on public-facing resources such as the website or any other public-facing content would be an inappropriate and unacceptable use if it had not been reviewed. So I'm trying to understand if that's something council wants to do to make information more transparent to the public about what we discuss in our meetings. Is that in violation of this policy? Or can we clarify somehow what review means in this case?
Yeah, if we wanted to apply, it's going to have language of what a pre-approved disclaimer is, because we can never approve what AI generates. And what we're trying to avoid is staff doing verbatim. And again, we just don't have the resources to do verbatim. I saw what we were doing and how much time it was consuming. So yeah, I think if we just put in there that any public facing transcripts would include this disclaimer, and then we could just put a sample, it would be pretty easy to do that. And then people would understand.
I think if we could add that in about what that pre-approved disclaimer language would be in that case, so we would not be in violation of the policy, then I think we'd be set. Those are my 2 points.
All right. I know we'd urge people not to come forward very often with travel requests more than $5,000 just, if it's not a good look. All right. Any other comments or questions about the handbook? So when will we see this for a vote?
But we'll get the edits to you sooner.
Okay.
Yep.
Fair enough. Okay, I will close the public hearing and we'll start at the right side of the table, my right, which is with Councilor Quinn for council acknowledgements.
Yeah, sorry, you caught me off guard there.
Sure.
Just wanted to shout out, I think they put on a really cool program this weekend over at the university for Women and Girls in Sports Day, and really kind of highlighted some unique and cool aspects of community. I think there's lots of incredible ways to create community in spaces, and athletics is one of them. And the more opportunities we have to get kids into that, the more they're a part of where they live. So it was good to see.
Excellent. Councilor Baker?
Yeah, a couple weeks ago, I took a tour of the police station, the public safety building, and the wastewater treatment plant. So thanks to Brian, Dan, and Chris who took me around. I saw some really cool things, and I saw some really horrifying things, mostly in the wastewater treatment plant. But no, appreciate you all taking the time to do that.
Okay. Councilor Powers?
I've got nothing at the moment.
Okay, I'll go last. Councilor Marks.
Well, I have to disagree with Councilor Baker here. I went on those tours and I actually thought that the wastewater tour was the coolest of them all and not at all scary and incredibly reassuring about everything that's happening to our water and before it goes into the river that I swim in. So a big thanks to everyone who led those tours. I also really enjoyed them, but especially to Chris Prue, because it was a place I had never been and nothing I had ever seen or learned about. And it was cold and we were outside a lot to do the tour. And he claims that anyone in town who would like a tour of said facility can get one. So I really do encourage people to take him up on it. It's pretty darn neat and fascinating.
Councilor Hardison?
Just putting in a plug for Officer Patterson. He's going to be doing a polar plunge March 21st and 22nd. It's a 24-hour event. to raise funds for Special Olympics. And for more information or a link to donate, look on the Orono Police Department Facebook page.
Okay. See some sick days in the department's future, perhaps. Approved sick leave. Council Larway.
I have nothing at this time. Thank you.
I would like to acknowledge that I did not respond to Marissa Schultz in time to let her know what the dress code was or whether she could bring her laptop, but she seems like she's hit it off all the same. Marissa is our new student government liaison, elected by, I'm sure, in a hotly contested contest to be the UMaine student government liaison to the Orono Town Council. We very much welcome having you here. If you'd like to introduce yourself, we'd welcome you to come up and say hello, but if you, yeah, come on up, say hi. Yeah. Rob's in charge of making sure you press the button. He's the,
This one? Do I have to keep holding it? Yeah. No? Oh, okay. I'm Marissa Schultz. I am a junior at the University of Maine. I transferred last year from Memphis, Tennessee. I just joined student government this past fall. I'm having a blast with it. And I'm really looking forward to working with you guys. If there's anything that you need me to tell the student government or you want any information from the student government, I'd love to, kind of work a little bit more than maybe we have in the past, especially on the good neighbor policy. So if there's anything you need, if you need me at all, I'll send you all my email so you can communicate with me in any way that you need to. Yeah.
thank you, Marissa. We actually had a meeting with the student representatives to the Good Neighbor Committee. UMaine Student Government was involved in helping us expand out that committee to include more representation from student government and graduate student government. So I had a meeting with some of those representatives a couple weeks ago, and we prepared, I'll forward you the emails now that we're in touch, of the kind of ideas that we're bringing together in terms of potential enhancements to the policy moving forward. So I'll make sure you're included and copied on those things. We're happy to have you here, and we are very serious about our collaboration. University of Maine students are our voters, our citizens, and we're very happy to have you here and want very much to have students involved in our process as members of our community. So thank you. That concludes item 7. Pardon me, and we'll move now to the consent agenda. This is an opportunity for anyone to, this is an opportunity for council to move a block of items in one without discussion, but any member of the public or any member of the council could ask for things to be removed and taken up as a separate action item. Anything anybody want to talk about other than that? All right, we'll take a motion on the consent agenda.
So moved.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? That's unanimous. Now we'll move on to action items. I'll take a motion on order 2629.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. Can we get just a brief overview of what we have in front of us? Jacob?
Yeah, so as promised in prior council meetings, you can expect to see quarterly financials brought to the full council every quarter. The finance committee reviews them on a monthly basis and asks questions, clarification, etc. And then the council will get a chance to review on a quarterly basis. In this first instance, they are being put on the action as an action item moving forward. Unless there's any objections, we will put them on the consent agenda, knowing that if any counselor has any questions, concerns, anything, you can readily pull it off. But yeah, if anybody has any questions on either the monthly revenue report and expense report or the quarterly financial report, Zach, Clint, anybody is here to answer that.
Okay, thank you for that presentation. Any clarifying questions?
Only add that starting next quarter, you'll see them on the consent calendar.
And so this, this is the first time that we've seen these this way, but this is kind of what we expect every 6 months or every quarter. And because I notice every quarter, and it'll give us the percentage will go up presumably for Q3 in a relatively 1/3 more type of thing, right? And so, all right, I'm just
Okay.
think
Any members of the public want to be heard on these? Mitch? Anybody online? With the hand up? Just checking. Anybody online at all? There's some views. Usually there's some views. Yep. Well, all right. And no more discussion on this. Council Baker, I trust you're going in every week to review the expenses like I used to do before we turn that over to you.
I just approved a batch last night.
Excellent. There's nothing better than come up with one obscure thing to ask Zach about, which, just for fun.
It's not my deal. No.
Well, I liked it a lot. And what about this one? How come it costs us how much to get a keep made? All right. We have a motion. We have a second. I've gotten my joke in, so I guess we can vote. All those in favor? Excellent. That's unanimous. And Zach, thanks for all the good work. Yep. Supporting the committee and getting us this information and making it transparent. Next up on the agenda is Order 2630, assigning the Community Development Committee to design a committee structure in charge for a downtown committee. Can I get a motion
so moved.
in a second? Okay, so this is, we talked about this. EJ presented us with EJ Roach, our Economic Development Director. Is that the manager? Presented us with a really exciting opportunity to do a visioning for our downtown. And we talked about, as part of that discussion when it was presented, we talked about having a committee structure to help support that work and give Orono residents who've got an interest in this an opportunity to be heard and to participate. I would say, so we talked about it in the council leadership meeting and considered a referral to the Community Development Committee, which I apologize if that comes as a surprise to the members of the Community Development Committee, but thought that would be the right committee with perhaps the time. And I think Councilor Quinn, I maybe heard a rumor that you had an interest in this as well. Is that true?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's true.
Excellent. So that was the thinking. And, we're going to want to do something short of, it's not the full blown, in my view anyway, not the full blown, like the town manager search we did, it's not going to be as involved as that 9-month process. But it'll be something, it will be something where we invite people to come in and all those ideas that we've been find their way into our inbox over the past several months or years can kind of reach out to those people and see if they want to be heard on it. So that's kind of what we had. Any questions about that or anything else to add? Councilor Larway?
Yeah, I guess I think I'm totally for this, for the committee to design a committee structure in charge. I'm wondering if we have any sense of a timeline that we're expecting on this.
You want to take a crack at it? Yeah, go ahead.
I don't know what timeline council wants to put, but I do have some factors that I think maybe, we should consider on that. I guess the first is the Community Development Committee meets on February 18th, I was told. I don't know if Matt could speak to how jammed up is your agenda, or is this something you could delve right into on the 18th?
Yeah, I think we can start getting into this on the 18th. We have other stuff to do, but we can set aside some time to at least start the structure.
And then I think the other question would be, when would council hope that we could have such a committee in place? Like if we're hoping for it to meet before summer hits in our university town, summer hits early, right? I mean, university gets out on May. I don't know what it is this year. Does someone know? Student representative, do you know what day we get out? May 5th, May 10th, it's somewhere in there,
April
right?
26th is our last council meeting before students go home.
Okay. So in order to have it meet before, students left, it would need to happen. The first meeting would have to happen at the latest in April, which would mean that we would want council to be approving a slate of potential folks who applied in March, which doesn't give Community Development Committee a whole lot of time. It gives you the 18th and maybe your March meeting also. And I think that sequence is determined a little by who is council asking to take a look at these applications that come in from the community, because I assume it would go out on our website and all our social media. Is council wanting NECAP to take a look at that like we do for all the other committees, or does council itself want to have a longer executive session and wade through all those applications as a full council? So the answer, Matt, is kind of fast if we're expecting it to meet this spring, and slower if people are thinking not until the fall.
I wasn't thinking that we necessarily had to have a timeline, but by April, but that's kind of, I want the staff's input. If they want to get it on it, then that would kind of drive our focus and how fast we want to do this. So that's kind of, I would want to get some idea from the staff, what they're thinking of the timing of this before I said anything on that.
I mean, isn't part of why this was raised is that we have this opportunity to be working with a consultant at some point. I'm wondering maybe somebody else remembers, or if you, Jay, could remind us what we're thinking would be the timeline of working with that consultant, because that might help us decide whether or not we don't have to rush this and we could make something happen in the fall.
Good evening, EJ Roach, Planning and Economic Development Manager. The timeline we were looking at, obviously we needed to put it in the upcoming budget. So we put a placeholder in there for those expenses. Timing wise, we were looking probably fall to bring the consultant in. So we do have some time to allow for the committee to form as you guys normally would form it. So we're not in really a urgent push to get that formed. So we can go at the pace of forming the committee. So
How are we going to sequence this, or will we sequence this with, we've got the police station work, we've got land use ordinance work that we're going to start getting into with the the comprehensive plan update. So how do you see this, Clint, coming forward in terms of all the different, if we had just project plan, like we, could control everything, which of course we can't, what would you envision for?
I mean, and maybe I don't understand. Step one would be a referral form tonight from someone to the staff so we can put it in the record and have it. I mean, that's the step one. We got to get that form. I've got them here. That's what we're looking for to get going. As far as I don't have 100% full understanding of where you're going, but I think more of this is informational and conversational, transparency and information gathering. So like when you refer to the land use changes, staff's already started. That's our job. We're working on those as the comp plan, so we're getting prepared. Taking feedback, I guess, would be important, but we've received, and I don't know the exact number of pages in the comp plan, but we've received 100+ pages of feedback to know where we're headed. So we got a good idea of where that's going to take place. I think it's more of when the police station gets further along, when we look at that green spacing, what are the opportunities we can consider? The library's got some things that are going on down there that wouldn't probably be bad, but I think more of it's the more general overarching of the consultant we're talking about is what is the vision of an Orono downtown. And again, some of you have made the statements, from when I've started about wanting to have a Route 2 walkable corridor that's, pedestrian friendly. We talk about having a clear connection so that it's cohesive with the university. I've had conversations with you and residents about what can we do to improve Mill Street so that it has a character and theme that's consistent with the overall community, and how could we do that? Could we do grants? Could we do other things? I think this is our opportunity to put that all together. And, as they say, a picture's worth 1,000 words. If we can show a picture of what we want the areas of our downtown to look like, then we got the beginnings of a good plan. And then also being open to what we don't know. I mean, there's going to be things that some people will bring forward in your process, I think, as a committee that will be exciting for us to consider as something else that we maybe haven't thought of. So I guess as I was to put this together, I think it would be great if you gave yourself 2 months to get a committee up and running, and then maybe 2 months to get all your input, so that by the time the budget's approved and we're moving into July, we've got information to hand in an RFP or RFQ or however we do it. Actually, this will be under the bid thresholds because the numbers I've been hearing is under 10,000. Then it would be a memo that we would give the consultant we intend to hire and say, here's your here's the basis of where we're coming at you from. We've done our homework and this is going to help you get going quicker. Am I on the right page, or am I misreading the
Yeah.
situation?
I think so. I mean, there are pieces that are, the vision could really inform how we think about in terms of we don't have like the pictures really in a way that would be helpful in terms of this is what it looks like with the safety improvement. And it's just really hard because there's so many different moving pieces to do this all at once. I think we've done it a couple different ways. Typically when we're able to get things, when you have some urgency and we get something done, the faster acting with some urgency can make a difference in terms of actually getting it done. Like, with the Good Neighbor Committee last year, that was fast and maybe too fast, but I mean, it was fast and we got it done. It was a lot of work. And I don't expect that this doesn't have that kind of urgency, but I do think the faster we move on things like this, the more likely we are to have an impact. And so why don't we,
I just looked at the calendar just to check committee dates and council meeting dates. Can I just read that out? Like, it is possible if community development thought that they could get recommendations back to council for our March 23rd meeting for us to vote on. That gives you 2 meetings, February 18th and March 18th, to do that. If the council voted to approve the charge of the committee fully at that meeting, then it depends. If council wants to look at applications itself, that's fine. If they want NECAP to look at them, NECAP meets on April 9th. So we could look at those applications and bring a slate back to council at the April 13th meeting. But it does mean we would want to probably advertise that such a committee is forming before the full description is done on March 23rd, because we would probably want a full month for people to apply.
yeah,
So, I
yeah.
mean, I think the timeline is possible, what Clint suggested, to get in place by 2 months.
Yeah, I don't think I would think we'd be able to come up with some recommendations, bring them right back to council. And
In 1 month, you could get them to us in 1 month, or 2 from community development.
well, we're going to meet on the 18th to talk about it. And then I think we could do it, bring it into the 23rd. If we've got 2 meetings before the 23rd, I would think we could pull it off and have recommendations come back in. And then we could talk about it in executive committee and then come out and vote on a slate. So,
And so are folks comfortable with the position, that the fact that there will be such a committee and the advertisement going out to the public about that before the March 23rd meeting? Because I think that's important if we want to be able, I mean, we're going to have a committee. We're just not sure every single detail of how many people and which groups need to be represented and all of that, right?
right.
Okay, then I think it would work.
Matt, you're the chair. Yep.
Yeah, so let me just make sure this is in my mind. So we want to get a charge done, right? It has to be approved by the town council, and then we start bringing in candidates. Is that what you're saying? Or are you saying we want to start getting candidates in, and then we have approval of the charge and approval of the candidates all in one meeting? I just
think-
want to make sure.
Yeah, no, I think what we do is we refer it to the Community Development Committee. The 18th, we have kind of a discussion with staff and get a good sense of what we're trying to do. Then we need to make it available, agree to advertise in general what it's going to be, and we'll finalize at the 18th, at the
March
our
18th.
March meeting. We will review people who've come forward, finalize a proposed charge to the committee for the council, and then council will come in and approve it, consider it on the 23rd and potentially adopt.
So you're saying,
And
yeah, me too. So you're saying that after the February 18th meeting, there'd be enough information to put out a call for people to apply. And then at the March 18th meeting, you will firm up the charge completely. And I think it's important to say, like, maybe you decide this in your February 18th meeting, but to get back to us on council about who's looking at those applications as they come in. Is that Community Development Committee? Is that NECAP? Is that the full council?
Yeah, and we'll decide that. We'll
at the meeting.
discuss that at our 18th. We'll give you an update at the council meeting after that to let you know which way we're headed and take some feedback from people if they've got any suggestions. But if you're going to refer it to the committee, you're going to let the committee do the work, and that's
100%. I do think that we're advertising positions right now is why I'm bringing it up, because there's a lot of other positions open. So staff have been advertising that there are committee positions open. NECAP's been talking about that a lot. So we want to be sure that this gets advertised too, was my point.
Okay. We'll take it all under advisement if the council acts on 2630. Got it? Got it. All right. And
I know
we'll
this-
remember-
I know the staff also asked that someone needs to fill out the committee referral form for this being referred to committee. So I think we need to know who's filling that out. whether that's council or staff. And the charge, I think, is pretty clear. The summary of the referral is to design a committee structure and charge. I would also add a name, because maybe it's called the Downtown Committee, but maybe you guys have a different name that you want to bring back, if that's amenable to the rest of council.
Well, yeah, and the two steps.
And-
One, we need the referral to
Mhm.
community development, to
Right.
create a committee, and then when they come back, they'll have a filled out form of what the new committee's called.
Right, but
Right.
for council to refer to them, we're supposed to give them a charge. So I think the charge should be, please create a committee structure, charge, and name. And we're also supposed to, as a council, identify any questions that we're asking them specifically. So other people may have questions, but some things I would want to specifically hear is how many committee members? Are there any groups you're hoping to see especially represented? As I mentioned, who's going to take a look at the applications as they come in? By what date are we hoping to have the committee in place? And then the other one is a requested response date. So I think we've been clear on that we're requesting a response at the March 23rd meeting. If anyone has other questions they think the committee should answer, this is supposed to be council's chance to tell the committee, what do you want them to answer? It's how we've built our structure.
So we have we have an order on the table assigning the community development committee design a committee structure and charge for a downtown committee. Are you offering an amendment, Sarah, to that, or?
I would offer an amendment to add the phrase committee name. And I'm also suggesting that anyone else on council who has a question they want this committee to answer that I didn't just list it now. Because this is how the committee referral form gets made and how the committee knows what it's supposed to bring back.
But I think, to be clear, all those other questions you asked, we don't need to put those in the amendment. Those are things we put on the referral form.
Right. They go on the referral form, not on the order, but everyone else should speak up if they have any.
All right, so I heard a motion by Councilor Marks to amend the order, so it reads, order assigning the Community Development Committee to design a committee structure, a committee name, and charge for a downtown committee. Is that a fair amendment? Will anyone second that? I guess, okay. Any discussion on that amendment? I'm gonna move us along. Okay, all those in favor? That amendment passes. Now we've got the underlying order as amended. Any further discussion? And we will work with staff to get a referral sheet done based on the discussion. We'll go back and look at the YouTube video from 6:05 to 6:12. All those in favor of order 2630 as amended? That's unanimous. Excellent. And Marissa, this is a good example of something we'll want to talk with you about in terms of the vision for the downtown of our college town. I think needs to have the point of view of university students, for now and in the future. So it'd be a good chance for collaboration. Next up is council committee reports. We'll start with Community Development Committee, which just got a little busier.
So we have put together the matrix for prioritizing issues relating to the Orono stops survey and the issues around town. And John Quinn has sent that, and we are tabulating that, and we will try and prioritize those this coming committee meeting. And now we are looking at setting up a downtown committee. Its structure, its charge, its name. All right. Anything further to add?
Nope, sounds good. All right, Finance and Operations Committee,
Nothing to report.
kneecap.
I mistakenly said at the last meeting that we were meeting last week, but we actually meet this week. So report will come after this week.
Thank you. Ordinance Committee.
Nothing new since our last meeting. Just a reminder that in the agenda is linked a document where you can check to see the general timeline on which we're going to be looking at things. Right now, it's listing it more by season than particular months, although with stuff that's coming up coming up a little sooner, like on number 40, vehicles for hire, we are listing that. We're hoping to work through that in March or April. So other things that are on the agenda right now are finishing up work around traffic vehicles and talking about cemeteries like we discussed at our previous meeting.
Council Marks has a clarifying question.
I love this document. It was really great that it was here. And I just wanted to understand under the notes and the review dates, when it says something like held per C-34, what is C-34? Is it
That is a good question.
like, maybe it means because we're going to do
Chapter 34.
chapter
Yeah,
34
yeah.
first?
Yeah.
So then when it says that held per, like on the one that says should be reviewed with C-34, so chapter 34, committee recommends repeal, I get, but one that says held for C-34 per council order? When did the council have any discussion about chapter 34? Or does that mean something different than, I'm looking at the first page on chapter 8,
Yeah, I see that.
held per chapter 34 council order? I don't know what that means, and I was curious if council has to take some action to know what that means.
I'm not sure. I mean, Shelley, I think, is really driving this document. I'm sure she would know why that's written there in that way. I think maybe we can clarify that with her.
I just want to be sure we're not holding you guys up somewhere, and if we're taking orders that have effects on you, to know what they are.
I think I know, if you don't mind. Chapter 34 is chapters as traffic and vehicles. Council order asked us to do that one now. So it was held in that it was postponed because we prioritized chapter 34 first. And then that one was going to be the next one up.
Does council order mean a council preference, or does it mean an actual order that we voted on?
I think it was an order that I don't think you took an order.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think I can talk to Shelley, but we
Yeah.
came in here and you said, we want to work on traffic and vehicles. We were having parking issues.
So order
It
may
was-
not be the
Yeah.
right word to me because it's,
Okay.
I'll double check that.
Yeah.
It just confused me. I couldn't remember us taking a vote on anything. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Thanks.
But I'll double check that and we'll get Shelley back to you.
okay.
Thanks so much.
Yeah. In other words, I just want to thank Shelley again for all the work she's doing on this and all the collaboration with all the rest of the staff to be putting together this schedule and making sure that the work is happening.
Okay. DEIB.
I don't have any thing to report at the moment.
The Comprehensive Plan Committee, I think we can pull this from the agenda on an ongoing basis. Yep. And council chair update, I mentioned the Good Neighbor meeting I had with university students. So prior, so that was part of what I wanted to update on. I think that was it for my council chair updates at this point. Town manager report.
Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate it. So a few items on there. Unemployment reserves, we're going to come back to, but I wanted to heads this up. The way the reserves are set up, it's going to deplete to a lower level than we should. But rather than dealing with it in the capital programs or reserve plannings of the budgets, Zach and I have identified a few sources and we'll be coming back to council near the end of the year when we know how the balances are actually going to finish for the year's activity. But there will probably be some sort of review and discussion about replenishing the reserve accounts because of the amount of activity. So just wanted to give you the first notification. Orono Landing Road. So we did receive a significant memo from our attorney and we began beginning to set up meetings with the residents. I did not share it here. I'd like to meet with the residents first. Council can have it and we'll maybe do more with it as a public discussion. Much as what we thought, it is if it is a public road or right of way, we're going to have to provide access for everyone. It's not any one neighborhood, but there are some options where if the landowners can come together, there's alternative solutions. So we're excited to report that we've got the information we need to continue forward. The staff's already reached out to some of the residents involved to see if they can come and meet, and we'll keep you posted. But we did get a legal opinion on it that summarizes most of what we thought, which is good. Benchmark, or again, probably should have added, that's Benchmark Construction, the company that's doing the design and has the agreement to do the work to do our new police station. They have contacted me last week and will have a estimated price, as we discussed, to me for the next council meeting. It was getting close and they asked for a little bit more time. I told them you were meeting tonight and I said, rather than rush it, I'd rather you have it complete. So I should see something by the end of this week. So it'll be on your next agenda to have the authorization to continue, depending on what the budget is. Well checks in the Good Morning program. First thing, that hyperlink in there takes you to the website for the town. And if anybody wants a good morning wake up call or a neighbor call, the Good Morning program, that's something we have people that participate now and others can sign up for. In addition to that, it was also asked if anybody wants to have a well check on a neighbor you're concerned, just call the Orono Police and they will take care of it. In most cases, that means a officer will show up because sometimes, what they see there could be a variety of issues. But so if any resident is concerned about their neighbor or another person in the community, you can just call the Orono Police. It's confidential if you want it to be. Let us know that you have concerns and we will stop in and check on somebody. So it gives you the two extremes. One, where you think something could be significantly wrong and you want a neighbor checked on. Or two, you're a family member and, could you call my mother who lives alone, and they set up a program with her, they'll call, in some cases as much as multiple, every day of the week. So those are the two options that came up from the council. If you ever have questions, come see me, but those are the two programs that are available. Council Googled a Microsoft update. We're doing this. This will, what we probably have never shared, this will affect you. Your emails will stay the same, but the drives that we share for the council documents will be updated to Microsoft. Stay tuned. And it is coming soon. So, but I wanted to make sure we took this moment to share that with you. You will have to have access to Microsoft. If any of you don't have access to the Microsoft suite, just contact staff and we'll get that squared away. Okay. Annual report. So the 2024 annual report, want to please report Cody has it finished. It will be going on our website soon. That's a little bit behind, but Pete started it. Cody came in and was onboarding and learning how to do it and took it over and has finished it. It is longer, but the 2025 report will be coming right on time within the next month. So they're back in swing. He just had to get understanding what was going into it. We have added a little bit. There's been some conversations. More sections are going to be added to the 2025, explaining why we do it. But you got to remember, we're reporting on that year. So for 2024, your town manager is Cornell Knight as the interim, and it says interim town manager Cornell Knight. For 2025, I will show up on that annual report. That will be the first one I'm in. Any other questions in that? We followed the model of what the town had been doing. So there's no significant changes. I think Cody has ideas, but nothing happening yet. Just keep you posted, all right?
All right. I saw Pete on Gilbert Street last night if we need him for anything. So
Okay.
he's close.
And then there's a couple little things I wanted to share that weren't here that kind of came up since then. First one, the info sheets that we worked on for how our community safety and community policing works is being updated. The biggest addition is we're adding our community policing policies that are on our website as direct links. We found some other links, and I want to say a special thank you to all the members of our DEIB, including the co-chairs, Anila and Malcolm. I reached out at the advice of some counselors, and that's led to a lot of dialogue. I've shifted this over to Cody. He's the community engagement director, and said, take the lead, and he's working on this at great lengths. And I'm pleased to say we'll have more information, and I'll share it for you when it's ready. So good news hopefully coming there.
Is it posted still in its original format or updated format?
It's not posted. It's available in its
Available.
original format.
Okay.
Yep. And it's the annual audit I received at 4:03 today, a draft. So we're making progress, but I have not read it. So I don't know much more than tell you that I want you to know I have the draft. And early this morning, I saw a draft, which I also haven't read, of the interpretive plan that we were working on. So great news on both of those. Those are coming. I'll keep you posted. But a lot of things happening on some of the projects we've been working on. And that's it.
Okay. Any questions for the manager on any and all that good work? Okay, public petitions, there are none. Future agenda items and council requests for supporting items. We listed the main climate superfund item. It was in the first draft of the agenda as an action item that was shared with council on Wednesday. I think it came in as a member of staff forwarded it to council leadership, and as something that it was relayed as an information item, and I think we kind of ended up putting it on the agenda as it came in rather than taking the time to talk about it and dig into it deeply. There was not a request by the staff member that it come forward. It wasn't as an agenda item or something for the council to act on. But since we'd seen it and it had been shared in in an earlier draft, I wanted to provide it. See if anybody had anything about it they want to talk about. I'm not particularly speaking for myself. I did take some time to look at it once I saw it on the agenda, and I would admit that I missed the initial email from staff on it. But it is a bill that has been the subject of 5 different work sessions over 10 months and 121 pieces of testimony at the legislature. And it has to do with assessing a fund against fossil fuel companies that has had a lot of scrutiny and recent amendments. And the amount of time that I thought it would take for us to have it it's not in our sandbox. Lori Osher is a member of the committee, Representative Lori Osher from Orono. She's doing her work on it. If we had questions, we could talk to her, but it didn't feel to me like it was in our sandbox, but I did want to bring it as a future agenda item in case anybody wanted more information or felt like we ought to dig into it and take a position on a bill that's moving forward at the legislature.
I don't feel particularly called to work on it.
Sorry, Rob, what?
I don't feel particularly called for us to spend a lot of time on it. Unless we were to, I mean, I trust that we would be informed, by Representative Osher or others if our support was seen as like it was going to be particularly helpful. I'm appreciative from our environmental services manager for bringing this up to us, but yeah, I mean, I think if the work is continuing, this seems valuable, but I'm not sure if it's thought that us taking a position and the time it would take for us to develop a position is a good use of our time, or if other people know a little bit more.
Okay.
I might have a slightly different opinion. I think that it came to us with a resolution already fully formed. It doesn't seem like it takes that much time for us to decide if we are interested in signing it or not. I think I would be curious in hearing from Representative Osher if she wanted to come. My standard really for things that I want to take a position on as a town is largely about what things are costing our taxpayers. And we keep hearing from our environmental services staff that stormwater surges and stormwater issues cost us money. And we're looking into grant money about how to deal with some of that. So I think that things that have a significant financial impact on our taxpayers are worth taking a look at. I hear you on the number of opinions. I haven't looked at them. I would be curious what companies are on which sides of those opinions would tell me a fair amount, I think. So from my perspective, with the potential financial impact it has on taxpayers, I think it could be worth asking Representative Osher to come talk, but I'd like to hear from other counselors.
Do you want to spend, well, okay.
I agree with Rob on this one that I think I don't know enough about this legislation to advise or vote that the town take an active position on it. And it sounds like, based on the research I did since this agenda came out, that it's a larger, more complex issue that I think it'll take more time than what I am willing to spend to do to get comfortable voting on a resolution to support a piece of legislation at the state level.
I'd like to maybe clarify my position a little bit in that, I mean, I do find this to be a very valuable bill to the extent that I understand it. I mean, I haven't dug in that deeply, but I would be very open to us talking more about it. Per what you just raised, Sarah, I think that makes a ton of sense. I just, I wasn't getting the impression that it was, I mean, I guess I was getting the impression that the bill is so far in a pretty good position to pass. So I wasn't sure that it was something worth the time, if only because it seemed like we're not going to make that much of a difference on it anyway. But I'm also happy for us to take a position on it because I would be in support of this if we were to decide to go that way as a council.
Well, we can put anything on any counselor can put anything on the agenda that they choose to, and how much time we're going to spend asking people to come in and speak with us about it. I will say is a subject to kind of agenda setting. I will say all of us are certainly free to do our own research and reach out to members of the legislature who represent us individually. We have been pretty careful about not taking positions on things that aren't directly in our purview. And I don't know. I don't know how much time we want to spend. If we want to spend a half an hour of our time having a presentation and discussion and potentially voting on this resolution, I'm certainly not prepared, or I certainly would not be inclined to vote for it as written. I think it would need some rewrites before I felt comfortable. And I do, but if people want to do the work and spend the time, that's a question for, and we can't vote now. So we're just trying to have a conversation about what a consensus is. So it is its current status is as of January 28th, 26. There was a divided report out of the committee, ought to pass as amended, that from Representative Osher. And it had a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 members of the committee were ought to pass as amended. And I don't know what that language was. And 5 members of the committee were ought not to pass. So that's where the bill is. And I don't know who would speak to us about it, who would be our, who we'd ask to come be our expert, and if we're going to have a proponent of the bill come in, do we also schedule an opponent of the bill? I mean, we're going to have our own public hearing on a bill that's, at the legislature, and all we're doing is, but again, these things come forward all the time in terms
Yeah.
of municipalities have a chance to endorse this or endorse that. And it's, it's politics and, trying to build support for different positions. So I'm not gonna put it on the agenda unless others want to put it on the agenda and are willing to give us try and give us kind of a balanced discussion on it. And we don't have to, and we could we could vote on it without any input from anybody. And, frankly, our opinion on these things matter. There's only so much that our opinions matter on these things, but. All right, I'm gonna leave this one unless, you know how to reach us if you have questions or suggestions moving forward, but, I won't be bringing it forward as an agenda item, and, but others certainly have that opportunity if they choose to.
The only last piece.
Yeah.
Remember, as a council, you appoint a representative of the Legislative Policy Committee of Maine Municipal Association and the Maine Service Center Coalition. Right now, that is your town manager. I have reached out to both. There's no position by either of them yet that I could find. Certainly not with Maine Service Center. The LPC, I'm trying to find if they had it at a meeting I missed earlier in the year, but it wasn't in their tracker. If you ever want to ask the status of the positions of those two organizations, you ask me, I'll give you an update. Okay.
And I would just, not to beat it too much, but I think we've been trying to be careful about how resolutions come forward in terms of who brings them forward. An item, so in this case, a member of the community or member of the council, or I suppose a member of the staff, really has to be the water carrier, someone who's got an interest in seeing it move forward. I think we've got a pretty open opportunity for someone to have a chance to have their voice matter on these items, but someone's got to carry it forward. And I would say the staff memo that we got was just sort of for your information, if you want to. So it's a matter of someone has to want to do it. And I don't think it's fair to expect a staff member to be in front of us as the proponent, because that wasn't how it was shared with us via email. So John?
Yeah, I just want to say I really like this idea, because I hate the idea of like everything's on the individual. You got to sort your trash, but we're not going to like ask anybody else to do anything at a higher level, right?
Yeah.
But would it be within the realm of possibility to, if I wanted to be that water carrier, to find out a little bit more, particularly, I think those are really valuable questions about like, how much is this voice needed and this push needed, to gather some information and
Yeah.
bring this back at a later date.
Yeah, if you want to, and then if
Yeah.
you think it's something that you could be ready to bring to our meeting in 2 weeks, I'll forward you the background email I sent to Clinton Sarah about the
Great.
status, so you'd have a good place to start. And if you want to do it, and you think it's ready for something we ought to spend some time on, please, I think that's how the process is supposed to work.
Happy to do that.
Okay.
I have one more question on that, which is also just, Orono is a community that has invested a lot of time at the council level in really thinking about environmental concerns. We had a environmental committee of the council for many years, and then that morphed into Megan Hess's position, which was hired, which a lot of towns don't have. And there's still an advisory, I don't know what it's called, but council or board or something to staff. It's not a council committee at this point, but there's an environmental committee that staff reach out to with questions. I also wonder if it would be appropriate to reach out to them about their opinion on this bill, because I don't think that this is out of left field. I think this is an issue and a topic that Orono has invested a lot of time, staff time, council time, not this specific one, but larger environmental concerns for the whole time I've been watching council. The last 5 years, it's been a big push of this council and this town. So I think we should leverage the resources that are already there too, and be sure to just ask if there's, Clint, is that something you might do or Megan might do, or could you coordinate with John about that?
Meet with John and we'll talk to Megan. Yep.
Okay. Next up, one other item that's not written down here, is we've been talking about having a discussion about camping on town-owned land. Clint, were you gonna have an idea for us today and when we'd have a presentation on that? Or was that something you need more time on?
I'm still working on it. I don't have a timeline. I think the best opportunity for the council and from the conversations I had is that I think we need a council position to understand the overall issues. I got to have staff put together what the options are, I think, for you. We're coming into that busy season, if you will. And I'm trying to figure out if it's going to be the next meeting of the 23rd or the first meeting in March. If the council wanted that brought forward, it has been in that queue. I'm just trying to figure out how quickly I can get together some suggestions, if that's what you were looking for.
Yeah, it was asked for, so one of those two meetings, I think I would,
Yeah, one of
So
those
maybe-
two is what
yeah.
I was hoping. Yep.
it's important that we do it, so.
Yep.
Okay. Item 14 is public comment. Do we have any, additional public comment?
I do.
Oh, I'm sorry, Andrea?
I know we've got another council meeting between now and then, but the plans for the next potluck are March 1st from 4:30 to 6:30 at the Keith Anderson Community Building on Bennett Road. NFR Maine will be our hosts, and they'll be bringing their mascots, Norm and Scout, for some photo ops. Ira Kramer will be providing music, and I've heard that the brother leprechauns, Larry and Louie, might be causing some shenanigans that night.
Sorry.
Okay. Anything else? Now we have public comment. Is there any public comment? Anyone online or, okay. Next up is executive session. We're gonna take a motion to move into executive session pursuant to one MRSA section 405(6)E regarding ongoing litigation. Do I
So
have a
moved.
motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor? Okay, so we don't have any items after this, right? So we'll shut down the meeting and we'll just come back in and adjourn. So Marissa, you have to leave now. But